Hi, I'm Rick Lobdell. Welcome to another episode of Concrete Mystique, the podcast. I want to thank Deco Crete for sponsoring the show today. Go to deco-cretesupply.com and check out all the amazing things they have to offer. Follow me on all social media platforms. Today, I have Jeff Hershberger on the show with me. Welcome to another episode of Concrete Mystique podcast. Today, I have one of my best friends in the industry. From the day I planned to do this, he was number one, number two in the top of the list of people that I wanted to interview. We've been talking about me doing this for years. It's finally happening. So I want to welcome Jeff Hershberger.
Thanks, Rick.
So happy you're here today.
Thanks for having me. No, this is fun. It is crazy. We've talked about this a lot. And we're finally doing this. And, it's kind of funny that you're going to interview me now because it's usually the other way around. I'm used to interviewing you. So it's going to be cool. I'm looking forward to it.
That's a good point. I never really thought about that switcheroo there. Same thing with why I want to interview Jason too, because you're right. You always shove the mic in my face, and now I get to get you back with it. Sorry that I don't have a mic on a trowel for you.
Well, the first thing I asked Rick was can you put a mic on a trowel for me? And he said no, but I think we can make it work anyhow. So
I think you'll be comfortable enough.
I think we'll be all right.
The funny thing earlier was I was talking about this purple background of ours, and they were like, "It's blue."
Yeah, it's definitely blue.
It's purple to me. I don't know what they're talking about.
What color is that exit sign up there?
Green.
Okay, all right, we got that. Yeah, no, it's green.
It is green?
No, it's green. It's green.
I thought they were always supposed to be red.
I think they are, but those are green, unless I'm colorblind too.
I'm going to have to take a picture to put that on here if the video actually works this time.
If we actually get it.
Okay, so my first question to start this off with is, what is your title at Deco Crete?
My title at Deco Crete, official and is pretty short, is just training lead. In other words, I'm basically in charge of all the trainings. Now, I hate to say I'm in charge of anything, but I am sort of in charge of that. So,
well, as long as you've been there, eventually you have to be in charge of something.
Well, that's what they say. I tried to avoid that as much as possible. But yeah, eventually that's what happened. So,
how did you get into the training specific side of, like, how did that happen between you and Jason and that how'd that come about?
It came up because we've been doing training classes for quite a while. In fact, we had our first training class at Deco Crete, honestly, even before I started working there. The first, I met some of the people who now work at Deco Crete for the first time at a training class. We used to have a manufacturer come in to put some classes on for some overlays. And so that was 2007, 8, 9-ish, somewhere in there. And then in 2010, we had our first just solely Deco Crete class on stamped concrete. And so I was one of the, Jason taught that class. He ran the whole thing. I was essentially a helper in that class, helping pour the stuff. It was funny because I was still working, pouring concrete in the field every day at that point. And I remember that first class, I was like on a job site till noon while they were doing their classroom time, and then we were going to pour in the afternoon, and then I went back to the shop and helped them pour and helped with the class there, and then kind of back and forth. So we kind of expanded from stamped concrete into concrete countertop classes, overlay. We started doing our own overlay classes. This is right around the time we were starting to develop our liquid metals line, so we started doing metallic epoxy classes and chip broadcast stuff. So we've always had like 4 or 5 different classes that we've done, and I was essentially the helper for Jason. And then at one point he actually asked me, we had our GFRC class coming up, and he was like, "Hey man," he's like, sorry, I'll put that down for a second.
I was trying to ignore it.
It's all right. Anyway, he kind of approached me, and I'm not sure what year this was, maybe 2015-ish, somewhere in that range. And he's like, "Hey, man," he's like, "what do you think about just doing that whole class?" And he's like, "I'll be the helper instead of you. We'll just kind of switch roles around, if you will." So I restructured the PowerPoint to kind of, to do what I wanted to do with it. And, don't get me wrong, I took a lot of what he had started, but I just sort of, put my own twist on some stuff. And that class went well, and after that he was like, "Well, that went really good. Why don't you take over the epoxy class next?" And so I did that one next, and I got to the point where I just sort of took over most of the classes as far as running them, teaching the classroom part, all that stuff. And then at a certain point, I want to say maybe in 2019, 2020, they kind of approached me with because at this time I'm still, doing most of the purchasing for the stores, or for the Orville store for sure, but maybe even, some for a few different stores. I was still kind of running the day-to-day operations at that store. And so they gave me the opportunity to, hey, you can step out of that role completely and move into more of just a full-time training role because, it was heading that way already. And so once they offered me that, then I had a lot more time to put into the classes, the literature, spent a lot of time writing actual, textbooks rather than just giving out little flyers. And I wanted something that they could take home with them and use, down the road. And so you just had a lot more time to put into it. And so the classes sort of grew from there just because, we now had somebody who's, so silly focused
an
on
interesting point to that, too, that maybe I've thought about it once or twice in the past, but now that we're sitting here talking about it, when you think about all the different supply stores that you're competing against nationwide and everything with what you're doing, how many of them have not only a training lead like you, training, and that's all your goal is to do practically all the time, but then there's other people behind the scenes that are making this happen too. It's not a one-person show. It's not a part-time show. It is a multi-person, multifaceted, complicated process to keep all these training classes going all year round, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep, nope, and I mean, definitely not a one-person show by any means. And so, there's Melina.
Yes.
I mean, that's a big part of her job is, all the behind-the-scenes stuff for the trainings and making sure that everything's organized.
Making sure that there's no cheese on my lunch food.
Sure that we know that Rick doesn't eat cheese or a lot of other things. We've learned that. Rick's a very picky eater. Doesn't like sushi. Doesn't like fish in general.
No.
Chicken, I think chicken works.
Oh, chicken's awesome.
Chicken's okay.
Yeah.
No cheese.
Just no cheese on it.
No Mexican food. I know better than to say let's go to the Mexican restaurant.
Well, the Mexican part is because that's what everybody wants to do.
Yeah.
I get enough of it. There's got to be better.
So we know if Rick's coming to a class, and this is a big part of, I guess, to your whole point here. And where we're trying to be, create an entire experience at our class. It's not just a show up, here's your material.
No, because one of the coolest things about it is that you have like a certification that you give them afterward. And I never really thought about asking them about it, because I'm on the other side of it with you. I'm one of the people teaching. So I've never been the student. Like the one year I just spontaneously showed up during the metallic class just to help out, just to have fun and things like that. I still wasn't one of the students.
No.
And so I've never been on the other side of it where I get a certification signed by the two of us, which I think is really cool because it's real. It's not a stamp. It's not.
No, we hand sign everyone.
We hand sign every single one of them. And they get to take those home and show them to our clients, their clients, and go, look, I've got this certification I did. I'm not just messing around. I'm taking this serious. I'm going out there. I'm finding ways to do better. I'm finding new techniques. I might not have done this yet. You might be the first client I have to do this on my own. But I took this class. You can look this company up. You can see how serious they are about what they do. This isn't a joke certification. This isn't just a piece of paper just to put on my wall to say I did something. This is a serious training. We do not mess around. And I know you're no different than any other training classes. But when we're there to teach you every aspect we can. We want you walking away comfortable. And that's really hard to do with, for example, the class we do together with all my design work. So many people are so intimidated by math, so scared of math. And I'm like, it's not that big of a deal. And that's the first hurdle you have to get over. And we've heard it many times. The number one question everybody has for me is, I don't know where to start. I get your idea once the initial starting point happens, but I don't understand where to start in the room and why.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so
I think that's like that in a lot of aspects of decorative concrete.
That's a good point for stamping too. Like I wouldn't know where to start.
Life in general, like it's if you don't know where to start, well, you don't know where to start. So,
yeah.
So no, I think that's it's funny because I didn't always realize how big of a deal those certificates and that stuff is to those people until we started getting some of the, because we've always done that, but once I started getting more involved in the training classes, I kind of started getting that feedback instead of them, giving the feedback to Jason, and that was a big one. Like, man, these things really do help me out, and that there are guys that take that really seriously, and we've had people that literally told me that they're like, we signed up to go to this class just because we wanted that piece of paper. That was the only reason we even did it. turns out after they got there, they had a great time. And
of
they
course.
loved it, and they realized how much more there was to learn. But they actually kind of signed up just for that reason, just because it was going to help them out to have it in their portfolio.
Well, the other thing too is, I've had one guy come three of the 5 classes we've done together. I've had one guy come to 3 of them. You know, like how serious is it? You know, and he joked about it this year, of like it looks and appears like he just doesn't get it. And it's not that he doesn't get it, it's that he wants to keep remembering and keep learning. Yep. It's not a one and done. You can take these classes year after year if you feel like you need to. You know, I would think like the advanced stamp class, taking that intro class and then going into the stamp class would be huge, to keep doing the advanced one as much as I could to make sure I'm keeping up with all the clever techniques, because that's when you learn the unique stuff.
Yeah, because it's always different. Like there's I don't think we've ever had 2 the same. I mean, even the one that you're involved with, we've never done the exact same thing year to year. It might be the same format, and we're trying to hit the same key things, but we're doing something different. We're doing it a different way.
And I will say that the best thing about doing the classes with you guys is seeing those people later on social media tagging both of us, look what I did. I learned, I listened, I tried. Look how awesome this job is. These guys weren't kidding. This really isn't that hard to do. I get the calls after or the text after saying thank you. It's the greatest feeling when they actually can go out and do something, and it wasn't just a demo where they were just sitting there going, oh, that's how he does it. Okay, great. Now I got to go home and figure that out. We got you knee deep in what you're doing, and we want to make sure when you leave that you have some feeling of comfort doing something. Like the biggest thing for my class is, to me, is how to use a brush. How to draw a soapstone instead of a pencil.
Yeah, and getting over some of the intimidation part of it. Because I'll be honest, I've come a long way in that area just doing that class with you. Because before that, I would have struggled laying out a tile pattern. I'd have been really scared at trying to hand draw something. I mean, there's stuff that I wouldn't have even attempted. But, you do kind of getting over that intimidation factor. And, yeah, no, that's what it's all about is people leaving with confidence and leaving happy, having a good time, having fun while they're there. Again, that's part of the whole overall experience. Like we put some thought into the food and try to, get good food. A lot of people, we get a lot of comments on that, like, man, we've been to classes, and usually it's just this little deli sub and a little bag of chips, and that's it.
Well, and the cool things too is when we stop for a second to do something kind of different. Like filming me cutting the turned into so much more. We joked about this idea of let's see how fast I can really do it, and then all of a sudden that turned into a bet. And then that turned into a video challenge. And, it just led into so much more because we keep doing these things instead of just being a one and done and going, oh, that would be a funny idea. No, we just went ahead and did it. You guys had it planned. That second, last.
I think a couple times we had it.
Like you guys had it planned ahead that you were going to do this with me, and I'm like, okay, sure, I'm along for the ride. Whatever.
Some of our best things come out of just some joking around like that.
I still believe I'm the fastest in the world.
Yeah, and the video's out there. Go to Deco Crete TV on YouTube. Watch the video, and if you have a challenge, if we have any challengers, Rick would love to see somebody.
Absolutely.
Would love to see somebody challenge this because I don't know the time off the top of my head, but
it was under 14 minutes.
Under 14 minutes, yep. And you'd have to just go there and look at the design because it is pretty.
It's incredible. An intricate design, and that's the other part to it too. Is you not only challenge on how fast you can cut, but let's see the design you're going to cut before you go boasting that you can keep up with me.
Exactly.
Exactly. I try to keep my ego checked as much as possible, but not right there. I got to throw that out there and go. I dare you. I double dog dare you.
Anybody who's ever grabbed the vacuum to collect dust for Rick, and if it's your first time, the first thing he's going to do is look around at you and say, by the way, I'm the fastest engraver in the world.
But with that said, what I was going to ask, I was going to go somewhere with the training classes too for you. You do these all year around. So, okay, here's my question to you. Let me change the conversation about it. I've asked you this before, but you do, when you first started doing this, you were doing concrete. And then you got excited when you found out about stamp, and you decided, you talked to your company. You told me this story before. You talked to the company. You did a couple stamp jobs. They didn't care. That's what led you to Jason. That's what got you into where you wanted to do stamping all the time. It was so much fun to you. But now you're teaching all these different aspects of concrete. You're not just teaching stamp or just how to pour concrete or, like I saw your last tech of the week where it was like, don't forget how to transition from one pour to the next while you're stamping. Those kind of details. But there's so much more you do. You do countertops, you do metallic epoxies, you do vertical. I don't know how you get into vertical after all of that. How did you decide to learn all that? Did you have to take more courses and all that? How did you figure out all those other aspects of concrete when you started just being a stamp guy?
A couple different ways. First of all, and again, I started out just pouring concrete, and I started stamping concrete and at a small scale, and then, like you said, eventually got Jason. Now I'm stamping concrete every day. But I spent a couple years before I actually worked for Deco Crete. Jason had another company that no longer exists called Cornerstone Concrete, and that's what we did. We poured and stamped concrete every day, but even just on our stamped concrete projects, there was a lot of them had vertical concrete incorporated into it, or some sort of an overlay incorporated into it, or maybe we were already doing a backyard patio, but then they wanted a metallic floor in their basement, or they wanted something in their garage floor. And so, I did get exposed to a lot of that. Even though our main everyday thing was pouring and stamping concrete, we had a lot of the other little aspects even incorporated into those jobs. And then, in the wintertime, and times are very different. Deco Crete wasn't the place that it is now, and so there wasn't much happening in the wintertime. And so there was a lot of playtime, if you will, in the winter, where we messed around with different. Again, Deco Crete was there as a store, so we were essentially just the early days of R&D for Deco Crete, I guess. And usually this is in the wintertime. So you got to do a lot of playing with that kind of stuff. And then ultimately, once I came out of the field, they offered me a position at Deco Crete in the store, and so now I'm selling stuff, although I never really felt like I was selling anything. I was just trying to explain things to people to make their life easier. During that process, I took it very seriously that I need to know as much as I possibly can about these
because there's so much to each one.
There's so much.
Each different avenue that you teach by itself, most people only are professionals at, and not the others.
Sure.
Like I'm all about the stains and the engraving and the epoxy, but I don't pour concrete. I've never done vertical. I've gotten involved with some of the projects or something when someone's doing it. But I personally couldn't do all that. Yeah, I personally couldn't teach a vertical class without a chance.
Let's be realistic on some of that too. Is that even though I'm very well versed in all of those things, but I'm not necessarily. Stamped concrete has always been my I've got the most amount of knowledge and skill of all the aspects for stamped concrete, but. All those other little things, I'm not going to be able to stain concrete as well as you do, and I'm not going to be able to carve concrete.
Oh, no, you've taken enough of my classes.
Well, who knows? That might have been a challenge right there.
Well, I got to be careful because you won't need me anymore.
I'm not going
to. Too much.
I can't carve concrete like Jeff Kurt carves concrete. I can't create metallic floors the way that our buddy Chris does metallic floors. It's more of a. I know enough to be proficient on those things. I could go out and do any one of those things I wanted to for a living. But that's kind of where the classes start. It's all about the nuts and bolts. This is how to get started. This is the need to know information. And then ultimately, a lot of those, the really highly skilled people, that's something you don't learn that at a class. You learn that through doing over the course of
well, and that's why I had to bring it up. That's my point.
And so, I'm not, like I said, even though it's well versed, we're all about getting people started, getting them going, and so all the other stuff, like the progression of that as far as skill level for me, it's just come from just doing it over the years. Even though it might not have been for an everyday job, it was through R&D, through helping people on projects. So, I've been to countless customer jobs where it's like, hey, let's figure out how to do this together, and so you learn a lot on those kind of jobs. And so it's a unique thing for me because it is a lot of job site experience, a lot of R&D experience, but it wasn't necessarily on one of our jobs. It was helping a customer through a problem.
I never thought about it that way. So it's finding those customers that are doing those projects and going and being involved with them, and probably, and to an extent, learning from them as you're going too, because they're the ones that are becoming proficient at it. I never thought about it that way.
And again, I don't want I don't want people to look at like you said. We're very proficient in all those avenues, but I'm by no means the highest end GFRC guy or the highest end vertical guy or the highest end stain guy.
No, but the difference with that is you're proficient enough to be comfortable teaching a class, because that says a lot. Second of all, my joke all the time is back in the day when I was a professional ballroom dancer, and as crazy as that sounds, when we were doing that back then, we were learning the step and then the next day or the same day teaching that right back to back. We weren't proficient. I wasn't that good of a professional ballroom dancer. I was just able to teach. I enjoyed teaching. I was happy teaching. I loved every aspect of doing that part. I had to take the time to learn the steps on my own. So I had my teacher, if you will, teaching me how to do these steps, and I had to learn both parts. And that's the joke to, the funny thing to it is I had to learn the male and the female part in a matter of an hour, go practice it on my own for a couple hours, and then later that afternoon, I'm teaching somebody the same thing.
So you would dance the female part too?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh man, I'd love to see that.
Absolutely. You had to learn both parts because, which makes it really uncomfortable for the male, because I have to grab a hold of them and show them what. But no, there are no videos of that.
Actually, well, maybe not that, but I did see some video the other night that nobody else will ever probably see. But
maybe.
I was fortunate enough to a very young Rick Lobdell.
But the fact that we weren't proficient at what we were doing, it was almost, I'm not going to say it was a joke, mm-hmm. And when I first moved to Nashville, for example, I had to start all over again, and I joined a ballroom dance company there. And no, it was like used car sales. Mm-hmm. It was not about your ability. And you were there. You had to be there 8 hours a day, even though you might teach one class, and you had to be practicing all the time. But it wasn't the same feeling. And I felt like I was taking people's money instead of having the beauty of the teaching and the beauty of the lesson and the fulfillment in the fact that they're walking away feeling better about themselves. And that does change with the way you guys are teaching too. Those people are. They're walking away feeling happy, feeling satisfied, feeling respected, and feeling this opportunity that there's so much more they can do now. Mm-hmm. And our friend Chris is a perfect example. He was doing metallic epoxy, and he was asking me about what else he could do, and I told him to come to the class. And now I got him posting that he's doing and he's doing the most complicated star you could do instead of making it easy for himself too.
And he's even branching out into some overlays now.
Yeah, so the confidence that he has gotten from those couple classes changes everything, and it's such a great feeling.
And there was one right after our class this past year. It might have been like literally the next week or two that his name's Chris, a different Chris Gentrup. He posted that thing where he did his company logo, which it was fairly intricate. It wasn't just a simple little logo, and so I was really impressed with that he had the confidence to go. I mean, it was on his own garage floor. I mean, I guess
doesn't matter,
but he went and did it. So
that's one of the things that you always say too in each of your classes, and I say it too. It's hard to do it in stamping, but you don't just take this class and then go sell the job and then go do the job. Mm-mm. You have to find somewhere to practice. You have to find somewhere to get a little bit more confidence, because you're gonna lose a lot of money learning on the job site. I did, you did, we all know what that feels like. I'm sure you guys have had stamp jobs that didn't go right, and it costs you a fortune to fix it.
Absolutely.
And that's the great thing about our position as the instructors is we've been there, done that on so many levels, it's not even funny. And we're trying to stop you from having all those mistakes that we had to make, because we didn't have someone like us to help us.
Yeah.
I didn't have a training class on what I did, I just did it. And I made so many mistakes, it's not even funny.
I've been to one stamp concrete training class when I was 25. It was the year I started stamping concrete. Honestly, I want to go to other people's classes just because I want to see how other people do things, and I know I would learn a lot from other people too. It's just every time there's a class I'm interested in going to, I look at my calendar and it's like, oh, of course, that's the exact week as
I wish Engraver Crete would do classes for the same reason, because I've never been to one of theirs.
And so no, and you're right about that. I think that's what it's all about. I mean, I kind of present it like this. It's like, hey, you guys paid the money to come to the class. Like, these materials are here. Like, get in, get hands-on, make your mistakes here. You can learn so much because, this material doesn't matter.
Well, and the great thing with my stuff, too, is that all you need is a 10 by 10 space somewhere in your garage, your patio, your driveway, and just draw with soapstone. Mm-hmm. You don't have to engrave it. Yep. Just get the confidence in that basic math that everybody is so terrified of, and just practice over and over, especially in the winter. What else do you have to do?
Yeah. And everybody's got a slab of concrete, or knows somebody that has a slab of concrete somewhere that even if you do some engraving. But I also like to equate it to, I don't say this in every class, but this is kind of the way I look at it, is the class is about presenting the knowledge. I mean, you're showing them what to do, but that's all they're really getting out of it is the actual knowledge in their head. They're not really developing the skill until they get out. Now, if somebody's really getting hands-on, they might develop a little bit of skill in a day or two, but the skill comes down the road once you actually start doing it. It'd be like taking a guitar lesson or a golf lesson. And you can go take the golf lesson for the best golf pro in the world, but you're not going to be able to hit that ball any better unless you actually practice those techniques.
It
might take 2 or 3 weeks before you start really getting the benefit of that lesson.
Yeah, well, this is like going to the driving range to learn that technique, drawing at home or, using 4x8 sheets of boards to do metallic epoxy on or whatever it takes to find ways to practice. It is no different than that's what you're doing. You're going to the driving range.
Mm-hmm. No, that's
until you feel comfortable to go out on the golf course.
Great way of putting it. And so, but the lesson, the driving range is going to be more helpful after the lesson.
Right, that's what I mean.
The lesson doesn't mean anything without the driving range if you didn't actually spend the time. So that's my big, and honestly, we've got a really good success rate with this on our classes too. But my advice is like don't just go home and forget about this for 3 months, because you're going to forget so many things at that point. Like go home and start working, and a lot of people do. Because I think that we also, it's hard to not be inspired when people come to Deco Crete and come to a class and they see everything that's going on and they talk to everybody else. Is people do get really inspired at that point, and so that helps them. That makes them want to go home and just charge right along. And I get inspired because I learn something every class too.
Yes, I even do, just as the teacher.
Yeah.
You do, because you're not quite sure exactly what you're going to get into each class. It's one of the great things too, is it's not exactly cookie cutter like we were talking about before. Now, one of the things I thought about too is, we talked about this once before back in the day, and I've watched you progress through this, is you're very comfortable sitting right here and having this conversation with me. You weren't this comfortable doing this 5 years ago?
No, not at all.
6 years ago? I mean, it's not like it's been 20 years of you being in front of the camera and just super comfortable. This was only a couple years ago that you were still not quite like, wait, I got to do what?
You should have seen, and you may have seen it, although it's not public anymore. But actually, it was never public. It was just a little video for our expo. I want to say it was like the second expo that we ever had. And you probably never seen it because it was out front in the entrance. But we thought it'd be cool if we did this had a TV screen. And, we were starting to get more organized. And it was like, don't just bring all your tools to the front. We have order forms now. Please use the order forms. Here's what's in your bag. Just a little, like, 3 or 4 minute video that gets their all the information they need, like, right there as they're standing in line. It's kind of like when you go to Cedar Point or an amusement park and there's information while you're standing in line. So, of course, it came down that somebody's going to have to actually speak for this video, and it kind of went around. It ended up on me, and I didn't want to do it, but I did it anyways. And if you could see how many tries it took me, and this is very short. I mean, we're talking is maybe 2 or 3 minutes. And I froze. I fell apart during that thing. I didn't think I was going to get it done. I had to drink a beer or two just to get through it. And if you look at it now, it is the worst thing you've ever seen in your life. In fact, after that, I was like, I'm never making a video again, ever. And so no, I wasn't comfortable with that at all. And I'm still not going to say I'm good at it, but I've certainly gotten a lot better.
I would say you're pretty good at it.
So,
I don't think it's just because you're holding a trowel. You've got extremely comfortable in front of the camera.
And honestly, I do love live videos too. To me, that's just a lot of fun, and that's where a lot of people get really freaked out on the live end of things. But for me, I don't know.
We've made this joke before because one of the things you guys do during your show is you randomly run around and ask people questions. And everybody always feels comfortable when they're just shooting the shit with you. But as soon as you throw a mic in front of them and say, go, it's like,
people change.
What do you need to know? What's going on? It's so funny
and
how
some of the most outgoing people that you would think are going to be great on camera, and they freeze as soon as you get
because mine was this last year when my friend I was talking to standing beside me just froze and stood straight and smiled and didn't know what to do, didn't want to move, didn't want to be a distraction. And I'm like, what is wrong with you?
What do I do? It's like the old Ricky Bobby. I don't know what to do with my hands, and I don't, and I still. It was funny because and you mentioned this before too, like even just speaking clearly and articulate and not stuttering a little bit, or I don't even know if we call it a stutter, but I definitely pause a lot when I'm talking, and so the pauses, I've had to learn the pauses are okay to be pauses. You don't have to continue to say something. That's normally when things like and all that stuff come out, is when you're sitting there thinking about what you're going to say next, but you feel like you have to be talking while you're saying it.
Yeah.
So a lot of that stuff I've had to get around a lot of that, and
and using too much.
You're using too much that you don't even know you're doing until all of a sudden there's a YouTube video out there that it's got now like 50,000 views, and I say like 1,800 times during this video. It's like, of course, that video, the one that's like the worst performance on my end, had to be the one that like got a bunch of views right away. Of course. But it does serve as a constant reminder of that it's okay, because if you look at the most common comment in that video, the video is on concrete slump. And everyone is, man, great information. Said a lot of times, though. The information is still good. It's okay. You don't have to be perfect. You don't always have to nail everything. And so I've learned a lot from that. Honestly, live videos are obviously its own thing, and I just take that as I don't know, for me that's just fun, and I just roll with it, and I love it. When it comes to scripted videos, I have started actually using like a teleprompter. I don't just like memorize all these lines, because it started out as you write down what you think you want to say. You go stand in front of the table, and things change. I mean, even still, like, you get in front of the table, the camera's on, you tend to forget what's on that entire paper. So after the videos were over, I mean, it was working, it was turning out
or
okay.
Or you just go in the wrong order. You know
order.
what you want to say, but all of a sudden you get flustered and you go the wrong order. Then you have to read.
And you leave stuff out, and you make a lot more work for the editor at this point, because now he's got to chop it up like crazy. And so we were at a point where I was like, there's only two things. Well, it's also where a lot of the filler words come from, too, and a lot of the ums is from not having an exact thing that he had memorized. So I was like, I either got to memorize every single script down to the last word, or I got to start using teleprompter.
Yeah, because the other thing, too, is then you start seeing, like I make a bullet point and I put it right underneath the camera. Mm-hmm. But if you pay attention, you see me look down for a second to pause to think about what I want to say next. Now, I try not to say while I'm thinking about it, but I'm looking down for a second before I look back up and start talking. And I have those moments and little gaps and things like that. But I don't know how else to do it myself. I've never thought about a teleprompter. I've never been on News Channel 5 where they have teleprompters all the time. So, here you are.
You have to learn how to do that. So the teleprompter helps a ton, because now your entire script is right there. You've got it word for word right in front of you. It sits right under the camera. So that part works great. But then you have to learn how to not sound like you're reading off a teleprompter, because it's funny, if I can tell you, I don't know the exact one off the top of my head, but if I went through our channel and just watched our videos, I could tell you the exact 3 videos where I was like, okay, that's where we started using the teleprompter, because it sounds like I'm delivering every word now, but it sounds like I'm just reading. And so
because you have to have that freedom.
You have to have that
the flow.
And A, it takes time. It gets better as you do it. But B, there's little tricks and things you can learn. There's some great YouTube videos out there on how to read off a teleprompter without sounding like you're reading off a teleprompter, and so I've taken some advice from some people, and so that changed everything, though, as far as the studio part goes, because job site stuff where you're just delivering information, that's just like me standing there talking to a contractor. It's no different. But in the studio, it's hard to not get a little bit. It's not even freaked out, because you asked me this the other day, and it's like, if you told me 10 years ago that I was going to be making videos, like weekly videos for my job, I would have, well, first of all, said you're crazy. Like, there's no way that's going to happen. And second of all, I don't even think I'd really want to do that. although now I love it.
I was going to say, not only do I see how much you love it, but I thought it was funny when I saw that coming, because I've known you guys for so long that I got to watch that transformation happen from that guy that just stands in the corner and doesn't jump out to talk to everybody. I mean, you've always been talkative. It's not that you're not talkative. It's that you don't go out of your way to stand in the front of every situation. You've always been fine being the second or third man in the line with no stress to it. And now, no, you're not that person. You are the front man. You are the man. And it's been an amazing thing to watch that happen. It really has.
I appreciate that.
Because I'm sure there's not too many people out there that have gotten as comfortable as you have at what you do and everything like that. It takes a lot of work.
Well, and I treat that just like I treat everything else. Just like when I started pouring concrete, just like everything, is that, how can I figure out how to get better at this? And so, it comes from time, but a lot of it is pretty intentional,
So the last thing I want to talk about today is, since we are at ASCC, the American Society of Contractors, in good old Grand Rapids, Michigan, which we love making fun of Michigan. But since we're here, let's talk about it. Go the Ohio State. Both of us. I should be wearing my Ohio State hat right now. Yeah. Since we're at ASCC, let's just talk about it for a minute. Let's put this as kind of a secondary part to this interview that maybe I can use separately or all together. Your company has been a member for over a decade.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say well over a decade. Even before I started working there, they were already members. So.
That's interesting. I didn't even think it really went back to the very beginning, because I've been around this for 12 years, and I never saw you guys at any of the events until we did the nonprofit project in Cleveland.
Which I wasn't even at that, I don't think.
All we did was use your trailer. Mm-hmm. You guys weren't a part of it at all.
Right.
Well, Jason did come up one day, and he helped me with the overlay. But other than that, you guys were always, you're one of those members that never utilized the organization.
Sure.
And I don't know why, and that's fine. Most of it was probably timing. But now I finally got your butt here, and we're finally getting more involved, and now you're on the board with me, and now we're making changes to the future of this industry. What do you think about all that? Like, what do you think about ASCC in general now that you've been here a couple times?
Yeah, well, and first of all, it's exactly what, you hear everybody say this, all week long, is you're only going to get what you put into it. Because when we were inactive members, if you will, I mean, we didn't utilize anything. We probably didn't get anything out of ASCC other than...
You didn't even know that you could put your email in there to get notifications?
No, I didn't. And I know that, before I started there, and again, it wasn't even for Deco Crete, it was for Cornerstone Concrete. Jason did used to go to some conferences, and he did utilize them when he was more on the contractor side of things. But as Deco Crete as a store, I always looked at it as, well, the benefit would be the directory, the networking for all the different contractors. But again, we were very just Ohio-based at that point, and it was like, well, is it really worth going somewhere out of state, meeting a lot of out-of-state people, because it's probably not going to work out. We're not going to do business together anyways.
No, because there's plenty of people from Ohio.
But and I realize this now, and we're obviously have expanded out of the state of Ohio, so that makes it. I want to know everybody,
right?
I mean, not just because for future customers. I generally do want to get to know everybody. Anyways, it wasn't doing anything for us at that time because we weren't using it at that time, and so yeah, being more involved. First of all, it's fun to me, being able to be a part of some of this stuff. But I see now how much it actually benefits, especially contractors, more than anybody, especially contractors, and which is what was the whole idea. But being able to network, being able to talk to people, be able to meet everyone.
Because this is your first official.
This is my first official conference, because it always ends up being the same week as the training class. But I have learned that this week I've just seen all the other things that come out of it, and how like contractors can utilize it for an entire safety program that they can have for you like the next day.
That was interesting that Ryan said that at our meeting. That was a good point.
Paid somebody $50,000 to do that, so that's a huge benefit. All the different resources as far as legalities that you can do if something goes wrong and you need to basically if you need somebody to have your back. I mean, ASCC will do that if you're a member. And so I think that part of it is something I never knew before. So I think that part's awesome. Obviously, the awards I think are great for the industry. So that's really cool how they do the awards.
Well, and I know you've been on Zoom calls with all of us for our DCC committee. So we're both on the Decorative Concrete Council as board members. But like yesterday or 2 days ago in our board meeting, you were the front man talking about what you're doing with best practices. Mm-hmm. Explain to people what that benefit is and what you're doing for this organization as a team. It's not just you.
Yeah, no, definitely not just me.
But you've got your own subcommittee on our committee doing its own thing. And that's one of the great things about this organization is there's so many layers of different things that are going on that either you can get involved with or learn who to reach out to find about this information. So tell me about what you're doing.
Yeah, so these are sheets that are 1 to 2 pages long, and we try to keep it like readable in a short amount of time. So it's not a textbook, but it's essentially a best practice sheet, and there's on just for a multitude of different topics. And we're in the middle of it. There's 14 or 15 of them right now, but those are the ones we're constantly trying to write. 4 per year is the goal. So. It's trying to get all the distilled information on one sheet of paper that the contractor can have on his phone, go to the website, click on
and we're talking about very basic things. It's not like we're talking about how to pour concrete in 2 pages.
No, this is all specific to stamped concrete or even just how to seal stamped concrete is its own sheet.
Because the newest one you guys are working on is just how to prep make a space for pouring or for doing epoxy.
Right. Yep. As far as prepping, well, and we did that was one that was last year was how to set up a proper mix station.
That's what I mean. Yep. That's what I mean. So these aren't complicated because that's important, No. And so there's so many different areas of the process of everything that happens in concrete. And again, we talk about everything from pouring concrete to stamping concrete to doing metallic epoxies to doing vertical carving. There is a way to put things together and get those answers through this organization in one way or another. But right now, the simplicity of working on how to make a mix station sounds like, okay, that's not complicated. No, there was details in there that most people didn't think about. And it took you guys a while really put together that process. It sounds on paper, oh, so what? That's not hard to put together.
You're just going to mix up some epoxy. But no, and here's
No.
the thing is, that sheet might not be revolutionary, the entire thing to every single person, but I guarantee if everybody reads that, you're just going to even find that one thing that just makes it just
That's why I say that.
just a
Correct.
little bit easier. And then it's also there just for troubleshooting on jobs, Like I said, it's quick, easy access on ASCC's website. And, it's something as simple as somebody's in the middle of a job, they have a problem, they call their boss, the boss says, hey, there's a best practice sheet on this on ASCC's website, read that and then call me back if you have any questions. And so if it makes it easier for somebody, that's the whole idea.
Awesome.
Getting somebody through a jam. And the hotline, there's a whole hotline that you can actually call as a member, and that's another benefit. And that's I don't know how the hotline works. Does Clark sit there and answer those live as they come in?
It goes directly to his phone.
Okay.
It goes directly to his personal cell phone. So wherever he's at, he sees that call is coming in.
So that's a huge resource, and it's like just the best practice sheets alone and the hotline. It's something that we kind of take for granted at Deco Crete because we have so much content that we've already created over the years through training classes and through just customer sheets, and we have so much in-house stuff that for us it's kind of like we already got a sheet on that, but not everybody has those, and so we take it for granted of what we have. But for a contractor that's new to it or doesn't have a ton of resource, like, man, it's
or is looking into trying to do something different with their company, adding more opportunities to their company instead of just doing one thing. Yeah, there's so much information out there that helps you, or like, I always talk about all the time too, from coming to these events and meeting the people that are here and doing that networking, you now have these people to call personally. You don't have to call the hotline. You can call Clark.
Yep.
That's the great thing about it is we also have access to these people individually because we're all here for a greater goal. We're not here to, I say all the time, in Nashville, I'm very cold-hearted and it's about me, and I don't like helping my competition, and I'm very particular about that. But then I come here and I'm willing to help the world.
Yeah. And that's all part of the network. Everybody trusts each other here. There's nobody's going to misuse information or anything like that, And so, what will make this whole thing a lot cooler, though? And I know everybody's going to hate me for this, but like some sort of like either actual training class or like some live demos, or wouldn't it be cool to actually do something like that?
If you would come to every year, you would have seen these. So it's a very good point, though. Every other year, we try to do a decorative demo.
Okay.
We couldn't do it this year. It was supposed to be this year.
Okay.
But because they were doing all those sculpture events all over town, there was nowhere to utilize and not make a problem because there was and we see all the tourism going on right now, all the kids walking through here constantly checking out all the sculptures and around the downtown. It's chaos right now with all these tours.
So that's what that's all for.
So I even tried to see if we could get involved with that, and we couldn't. It was bad timing or whatever, for whatever reason. I don't know if that means we're going to do something next year or what we're going to do, but we try to do that every other year.
Do you know where it's at next year?
Yes, it's in Kansas City.
Kansas City, okay, all right.
And I don't know anything about that place or anything like that yet. I am going to get involved with where we go next after that, and I'm excited about finding that information out and being a part of that.
Oh, Nashville would be pretty cool.
I keep saying that, but they say that because of the dates we want, it's almost impossible.
Oh, really?
Because there's so much else going on.
Okay, well, they can bring it back to Cleveland if they want to. That one's really easy for me, too.
I have not heard a single negative about Cleveland the whole week.
Nice.
Not a single person. Everybody has said Cleveland was awesome.
Cool. Which is
was
rare.
cold.
Usually people don't say that when they come
to Cleveland. It was
to
a miserable
Cleveland.
week in Cleveland, too. I'm glad we didn't do a demo that week.
Yeah. Cleveland can be such a great place in the summer, but such a terrible place in the winter.
Yeah. So, no, as soon as we see the next opportunity to do a demo, you will be involved.
All right, cool.
All right, well, I want to thank you for coming in, chatting with me.
Man.
Glad we finally got to start this. We're going to do this again and talk more about snowboarding and fishing. And
No,
all the
I
other
know.
stuff
We've
we
got
do on
so
the
much
side.
more we need to talk
We could spend
about.
hours doing this.
But no, I thanks for having me on, and I just think it's really cool that you're doing this podcast. I just don't think that there's enough podcasts in decorative concrete. There's like maybe 2, and I just think the more we can have, the more different and diverse ones we can have, the better it's going to be for everybody. So thank you for starting Concrete Mystique podcast.
No problem, man. Everybody have a great day. We'll talk to you again soon. I want to thank Deco Crete for sponsoring the show today. Go to deco-cretesupply.com and check out all the amazing things they have to offer, from training classes to products to equipment. Anything you need, they can help you out with.